The alumni of Rutherford Academy, with a distinct air of superiority, orchestrated a 5-year gathering, deliberately luring their perennial target to serve as the butt of their jest once more. During their high school years, they had assailed him with a litany of derisive labels: freak, timid, and destined for obscurity. This evening they yearned for another round of amusement, a nostalgic echo of their past unkindnesses. As dusk settled, Marcus Green entered the Rutherford Academy banquet hall, clad in a worn hoodie, scuffed footwear, and an aura of profound quietude. In earlier days, Marcus had been branded a failure. Now, he was a solitary father, his gaze reflecting the toll of nocturnal vigils spent comforting his son and meticulously crafting code. A ripple of derisive chuckles, akin to sputtering fireworks, spread through the assembled crowd. Brooke Whitman offered a condescending smirk, while Chase Walker regaled them with embellished tales of unproven ventures. Tyler Voss, the self-proclaimed rhyme master of ceremonies, clutched his prepared index cards, confident in his pre-written witticisms. They believed their comedic performance was meticulously rehearsed. However, when Marcus paused in the center of the hall, his composure as placid as a soundproofed sanctuary, the room seemed to exhale a collective breath, as if sensing an unspoken presence awaiting the unfolding night. Mere hours prior, a stark white envelope had been discovered nestled beneath a stack of unread correspondence on his modest kitchen table. Elegant, pale blue lettering declared, "Class of 2018 reunion, you're invited." His refrigerator served as a gallery for his 6-year-old son's artistic endeavors: a lopsided sun, a meticulously constructed Lego train, and 2 stick figures holding hands beneath the scrawled inscription, "Dad plus me." Marcus traced the edge of the envelope, his gaze drifting to Jaden, his son, who was engrossed in the intricate task of swapping Lego wheels with an innocent concentration. Rutherford Academy resurfaced in his memory, an unspooling film reel, stark white corridors, regimented locker bays, the percussive echo of leather soles on gleaming floors, and the solitary figure of a black student amidst a sea of pale uniforms, head bowed, clutching his textbooks as if for protection. Peculiar, won't make it, too shy to achieve. Those pronouncements, once sharp-edged barbs, now felt like worn-out husks, still capable of inflicting a sting. "Dad, I've finished the train car," Jaden announced, his bright eyes lifting towards Marcus. "May I watch 10 more minutes of cartoons?" Marcus gently tousled his son's hair. "Certainly, provided you brush your teeth first and remember to politely thank Mrs. Evans." He then reached for his phone to contact his neighbor 2 doors down. "Could you possibly keep an eye on Jaden for a few hours tonight?" A warm voice promptly responded. "Absolutely, Marcus. Your little man is a genuine delight." Watching his son embrace his beloved stuffed tiger, Marcus felt a lightness in his chest. He understood his motivation for attending, not for retribution, but to decisively close a chapter. Thus, when his son inquired about his father's past, he could share a narrative unmarred by lingering resentment. He retrieved a lightweight jacket from the closet. The imperfect mirror on the wall offered a reflection of a man bearing the marks of sleepless nights, yet possessing a steady gaze. Nothing about his attire suggested affluence, and this was precisely his intention. He had deliberately chosen to operate in obscurity, diligently signing contracts and analyzing artificial intelligence infrastructure by day, while by night he diligently addressed software defects and drafted technical specifications. At the cusp of dawn, his routine involved preparing infant formula, folding laundry, and soothing his child. While others might deem this a precarious equilibrium, Marcus viewed it as his solemn obligation, and such responsibilities did not await external validation. A fine mist settled on the street as he secured his door with a familiar turn of the lock. With each descending step, he shed another layer of the loser epithet that had been so readily affixed to him. A taxi deposited him at the Rutherford Academy banquet hall, where the aroma of lemon polish wafted on a cool breeze. Gilded balloons formed an arch above a long table laden with name tags. Marcus located his own, Marcus Green, and affixed it, his safety pin snagging momentarily on a loose thread. Whispers, sharp as daggers, followed him. Definitely the hoodie vibe. Imagine he lives with ants. Probably hauls freight. He proceeded past the expansive banner proclaiming Class of 2018, presented by Summit Gatherings. Unbeknownst to them, the presented by attribution this evening held a significance far beyond mere sponsorship. Tyler Voss tapped the microphone, his voice booming. Reunited and richer. A ripple of somewhat forced laughter followed. Marcus selected a table situated partially in shadow, poured himself a glass of water, and placed it down. A delicate ring of condensation marked the pristine tablecloth, the evening's first subtle inscription. At the bar, Chase Walker presented his credit card, only for the machine to emit a cold, unyielding refusal. The bartender angled the screen discreetly, artfully obscuring the word declined. Two nearby individuals exchanged knowing glances, muttering, Chase's latest app has crashed again. Investors detest public failures. Brooke Whitman drifted over, her champagne glass clinking. Marcus, it's been ages. You look so retro. Her smile, however, failed to reach her eyes. She departed as abruptly as she had arrived, leaving a lingering cloud of expensive perfume in her wake. On the stage, the retrospective slideshow commenced, showcasing a progression of achievements. A legal practitioner in Boston, the grand opening of a Pilates studio, a newly established venture capital fund managing substantial assets. Fresh accolades artfully concealed the old imprints. The ambient noise intensified, the perceived joy rendered hollow. Marcus calmly surveyed the room, akin to a system administrator monitoring logs, noting the delays in laughter, the dip in engagement whenever Tyler's jokes faltered, and the subtle leakage of gossip from conversational clusters. He dipped a finger into the condensation ring, extending it until the moisture blurred and ultimately vanished. Another ring would inevitably form. Such was the nature of water and the transient essence of superficial interactions. "Daddy, I want to build the train even taller," Jaden had exclaimed earlier that afternoon. The memory resonated within Marcus's mind. Taller means stronger, he had replied. Tonight, he too was constructing something taller, not for their approval, but for the pride of his son. The spectacle continued its unhindered progression, empty glasses, the clinking of silverware, the rhythmic click of high heels on the polished floor. All this background clamor served to mask a singular truth. Collective mirth finds its true purpose only when directed towards a shared target. They believed they had identified that target. Marcus took another sip of water, then carefully placed his glass down. The second condensation ring imprinted itself with sharper clarity. He knew he occupied the correct space at the opportune moment, and the night had yet to reach its pivotal turning point. The music swelled, as if attempting to overwrite the nascent silences. Tyler Voss spun, his grin illuminated by the spotlight. "Let's play Then and Now." Photographs flashed across the screen. Ryan Grant in his athletic prime during lacrosse season, now a respected figure in the golf community. Haley Brooks, the former prom queen, now managing a burgeoning medical spa. The room responded with synchronized laughter, much like a studio audience. Marcus remained at the periphery of the light, his hand resting lightly on his glass. The initial water ring had evaporated, leaving a faint imprint, a chalky residue barely erased. Then, the subsequent slide appeared, a stark gray frame bearing the inscription, "Photo not provided." A snort broke the silence, followed by suppressed giggles. Tyler lowered his voice, adopting a tone of mock commiseration. "It appears someone neglected to upload their contribution." The room erupted once more. Marcus lifted his glass, slowly rotating its base on the tablecloth. The second condensation ring expanded. Then, with a single, deliberate motion, He wiped it clean with his sleeve. A circle eradicated. The laughter persisted, but it was now possible to brush it aside, allowing it to dissipate into the unseen depths of the floor. "And now for some minor accolades," Tyler announced, raising certificates adorned with gold trim. "Best glow up, most international, biggest boss energy." Each pronouncement elicited a predictable wave of amusement. Finally, he withdrew the last slip of paper. "Honorable mention, most likely to remain different." He paused. "Marcus Green, are you in attendance?" A solitary spotlight found him at a back table. Marcus pushed back his chair, the scrape of wood cutting through the air with startling clarity. He stood and addressed the stage. "Thank you." A single word, no elaboration. The room fell still, anticipating his participation in their charade, eager to prolong their amusement, but nothing further emerged. The void left by his brevity struck everyone with the chilling sensation of a sudden draft. A hushed undercurrent of speculation ensued. Why was he even invited? Tyler said it would be amusing. Look at those shoes. At least 10 years old. Bet he took an Uber or lives with his aunt. Insinuations like fine shards of glass sliced through the air. Marcus neither sighed nor offered a wry smile. He filed it all away mentally. Every comment, every glance, every beep from the bar where Chase Walker's card was again declined. The bartender, maintaining a professional demeanor, obscured the screen's message. Chase pulled out his phone, its blue luminescence illuminating his face. "Final notice." He flipped it over, a crooked grin playing on his lips. "Just investor follow-up," nobody asked. Tyler, flustered, attempted to regain control of the evening's momentum by initiating impromptu interviews with audience members. The microphone was passed to Ryan, then to Haley. As it approached Marcus's table, it seemed to hesitate, then veered away, as if its holder suddenly recalled an off-script detail. Laughter faltered, a half-beat delayed, akin to a struggling server. Marcus poured more water, setting the glass down once more. The third condensation ring had barely begun to form before he gently blotted it with the corner of his napkin, a small act of maintaining his own composure. "And now," Tyler announced, bouncing back onto the stage, "a moment to acknowledge our sponsors. Without their generosity, this extraordinary evening would not be possible." He flipped his cue card. Blank. A flicker of panic creased his brow. He reached for another, also blank. A few awkward titters rippled through the crowd. Tyler plastered on a smile, enhanced by a sheen of lip gloss. "Ah, it seems they prefer to remain anonymous. Let's give them a round of applause." The applause dispersed like hailstones striking tin. It was the wrong chord. Marcus pushed his chair back again, the resulting scrape cutting sharp and distinct through the air, overriding the music. Heads turned. He proceeded down the aisle between the tables, his shoulders relaxed, his posture erect. At the foot of the steps, he paused for a fractional moment before ascending. The stage lights caught the faded fabric of his hoodie, the dried water spots glinting like fallen stars. Marcus did not immediately grasp the microphone. He adjusted his sleeve, allowing his gaze to sweep slowly across the room. The low hum of the sound system, the drone of the ceiling fans, the projectors, all background noise suddenly became acutely audible, as every voice had fallen silent. He spoke, his voice low yet clear, unforced. "Thank you all for attending." A ripple of disappointment spread through the room. He offered a slight nod, his eyes resting on the banner. "Presented by Summit Gatherings." "And thank you to Summit Gatherings for hosting." He paused for precisely one beat, like a conductor preparing to cue the strings. "Actually," he continued, "that was me." The words descended like a dry pebble into still water, each syllable resonating. Plink. The first ripples of shock spread across the faces of those who had laughed the loudest. Someone stammered, "What?" Tyler visibly swallowed, the sound amplified by the microphone. Marcus retrieved his phone. One tap. The then and now slideshow vanished. The screen transitioned to a series of prominent headlines from TechCrunch, Forbes, and VentureBeat. Green Technologies secures $40 million in Series B funding. The new vanguard of AI infrastructure. A cover photo displayed Marcus, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his quiet eyes conveying the self-assurance of a man who needed no external validation. Gasps threaded through the room like a lit fuse. In the bottom right corner, a figure appeared. Estimated net worth, $18 million. Not a staggering 9 figures, not a gaudy display, simply a sum substantial enough to ground the room in reality. Marcus pocketed his phone, allowing the projector to remain fixed. In the bottom corner, a logo materialized. 2 hands, one large, one small, clasped together. Jaden Fund. The significance was not immediately apparent to everyone, nor did it need to be. "Check it," someone whispered. A dozen phones illuminated, their blue glow casting stark light on faces that flushed with surprise and paled with dawning realization. Fingers scrolled, eyes darted, verifying the authenticity of the links, the logos, the photographs, the undeniable truth. Brooke Whitman lowered her glass, the champagne foam puffing and then collapsing. Chase Walker tugged at his sleeve, attempting to conceal a tear in the fabric. Ryan Grant fumbled with a button, as if it could mend what had already unraveled. Tyler Voss blinked rapidly, as if willing the evening to rewind and reinsert his cue cards into their proper order. But time, as Marcus knew, does not reverse, and the water ring he had left earlier, somewhere in the shadowed recesses of the room, had long since dried. The atmosphere of the room had fundamentally shifted. Voices fragmented, laughter became a choked utterance between clenched teeth. No one reached for their glass. No one ordered another drink. Marcus stood at the room's epicenter, an unmoving point of reference. He offered no reprimand, no lecture. He simply held up a mirror on stage, allowing each individual to confront their own reflection. The spotlight swept across the banner, highlighting the words, "Presented by." 3 words that now underscored that the evening's true power had never resided with the man holding the microphone. Miles away, in a modest apartment, Jaden was likely asleep, his stuffed tiger clutched tightly, the blanket kicked aside. Marcus considered his son, and all parents like him, weaving their days together with the unwavering thread of responsibility. He cast a final glance across the room. Someone attempted a forced laugh. No one responded. The moment had irrevocably shifted, and the true unfolding of the night had only just begun. In a single, collective inhalation, the room seemed to change hue. The blue luminescence emanating from dozens of phone screens washed over faces still flushed from recent laughter, now pale and etched with uncertainty, slowly freezing into a profound silence. Fingers swiped and tapped, cross-referencing logos, photographs, and investor names. Each person sought confirmation independently, reluctant to trust the individual beside them. Truth, once awakened, prefers to proceed unescorted. TechCrunch confirms it, someone whispered. Forbes matches the photograph. Green Technologies headquarters and capital structure indicate North Peak Capital and Hawthorne Partners. Names recognized by all, yet encountered by few. A series of short, sharp exclamations like falling dominoes echoed through the space. Brooke Whitman's hand fluttered to her neck, her pulse quickening. Ryan Grant abandoned a half-formed smile, his gaze vacant. Chase Walker pressed his knuckles against the table's edge until they turned white. On stage, Marcus remained silent. His quietude effectively conveyed his message. He lifted the water glass, placing it down with deliberate care, leaving a faint ring on the polished wood, a mark no larger than a coin, yet magnetic, akin to invisible ink documenting a pivotal event. Something transpired here. Tyler Voss attempted to regain control of the situation. This is clearly a fantastic boost for our class. Marcus, my friend, truly remarkable. Perhaps you could share some insights, your journey, a few secrets, like 5 hacks to success. The final words landed with a dull thud. 5 hacks. The vernacular of a hurried, outcome-focused crowd clashed with the raw authenticity Marcus was laying bare. A 5-year construction. There are no hacks, Marcus stated, his voice devoid of inflection. Only the protracted path. He directed his gaze towards the front rows. I was not present at the post-graduation parties. I did not frequent rooftop lounges on Friday evenings or golf courses on Saturday mornings. I was in my kitchen at 2 a.m, one hand steadying a bottle, the other diligently typing code. Weird. What you labeled me back then was merely foresight, a vision your eyes were not yet accustomed to. Fail. When you mocked my setbacks, it was merely patience, a lesson not yet sufficiently reiterated. A collective sigh escaped the room. Brooke carefully set her glass down, averting her gaze from the receding champagne foam. Marcus continued, his demeanor as steadfast as a craftsman tightening a crucial bolt. You inquire about my current endeavors. In essence, this. He gestured towards the projector. The Green Technologies logo, as unassuming as a submerged marker, conveyed a weightiness that needed no amplification. We construct what users never directly perceive, the foundational infrastructure that enables AI companies to respond instantaneously, even when subjected to simultaneous demands. It lacks ostentation, but it must function flawlessly. A male voice attempted a final defensive gambit. All of that could be fabricated. Chase Walker spoke, but the room's attention was no longer focused on Marcus. It pivoted in unison towards Chase, the very individual whose card had been declined on 2 occasions. Marcus's gaze shifted, calm and assessing. If public relations can orchestrate a Series B funding round, then you should invest in public relations, not startups. Scattered laughter, distinct this time, not mocking, but acknowledging. Chase lowered his eyes. Marcus advanced to the next slide. Not spreadsheets, but a simple white page bearing the logo of 2 clasped hands. Jaden Fund. This, he declared, is the sole designation I desire to be associated with my name, not for self-aggrandizement, but to point outward. Jaden, my son, 6 years old, is asleep a few miles from here. Over these past years, I've come to understand that success does not provide answers to every question. However, it can offer solutions to specific ones. Consider the plight of a single parent striving to learn programming but constrained by the prohibitive cost of childcare, or a mother seeking a certification in technology support but forced to work night shifts. He paused. Jaden Fund will provide micro-grants, ranging from a few hundred to a few $1,000s, to purchase time. Time is the most precious commodity for those facing economic hardship. The concluding words resonated, their echo lingering. Anyone here who wishes to nominate someone, please see me afterward. No posed photographs, simply a name, a narrative, a proposed course of study. A female voice trembled slightly. Marcus, why did you choose to remain anonymous this evening? Marcus met Brooke's eyes. Because sometimes the work is more impactful without a name attached, but on certain nights, a name is necessary to correct the prevailing narrative. He exhaled slowly, a breath only he perceived. Tyler attempted another intervention. Well, we are all delighted for you. Extremely proud. And regarding that figure, $18 million, you know, people speculate a great deal. Marcus responded deliberately. Rumors are their occupation. Truth is a different pursuit. The figure displayed on the screen represents a conservative estimate of a milestone already surpassed. But honestly, no monetary figure holds more significance than how we treat one another. My existence will not be fundamentally altered, for better or worse, by a headline. However, yours might be, if tomorrow morning you choose to refrain from ridiculing someone else. A profound stillness settled over the room, a silence imbued with palpable weight. A compact photo printer began to dispense Polaroid pictures of classmates engaged in embraces and wide smiles. No one retrieved them. It felt akin to standing before a mirror, incapable of any digital enhancement. A hand slowly rose. Haley Brooks, her face flushed, her voice raw with emotion, spoke. "Marcus, I believe we owe you an apology. Not because you've achieved financial success, but because, both back then and tonight, we demonstrated intellectual laziness." The phrase intellectual laziness hung in the air, a concise and damning indictment. Marcus offered a slight nod, neither an act of absolution nor a reprimand. Forgiveness is not something to be publicly displayed. From the far end of the room, someone extended a metaphorical lifeline. "How about a class photograph with Marcus?" Tyler seized the suggestion, exclaiming, "Class photo! Class photo!" Yet, no one moved. The first person to step forward would implicitly be acknowledging guilt. The herd mentality had lost its impetus. Marcus placed a hand on the edge of the podium, his gaze sweeping one final time across the assembly. He observed the water ring gradually fading, leaving behind only a faint trace, the indelible mark his soul had imprinted upon this stage. "I did not come here to take anything," he stated, "only to reclaim a name, to set it right." He drew another breath, akin to closing the final page of a book. "The remainder, you will compose yourselves." And for the first time that evening, the room instinctively understood its next action without the need for a master of ceremonies. Silence. Marcus. Tyler faltered, his voice stripped of its former polished veneer. If you wish to elaborate, we..." He fumbled through his cue cards, his fingertips brushing against only blank paper. The props that had once bolstered his confidence now served as irrefutable evidence that tonight the truth had been entirely unscripted. Marcus adjusted the microphone, positioning it upright like a mechanic straightening a bolt with stripped threads. "Not at great length," he said, "merely an old memory, the 10th grade science fair. My display malfunctioned, so I approached your table requesting 2 AA batteries. You laughed and remarked, 'That weird kid is always missing something.' I ended up borrowing from a teacher instead. When they announced the winners for the ribbon photographs, I opted out." Faces stiffened, memories resurfaced from the deepest recesses of their minds. "That day, I learned a valuable lesson. Not everyone laughs because they harbor animosity towards you. Many laugh because they simply require someone to target their amusement. Tonight," he leveled his gaze at the front rows, "is no different. You constructed a comedic performance. I chose not to participate. Not because I hold any animosity towards anyone here, but because I no longer require that particular role." He tilted his chin slightly towards the projector. "Weird is foresight that has yet to find its language. Fail is patience that has not been sufficiently repeated. And the fundamental distinction between us," he paused precisely at the crucial juncture, allowing the subsequent words to cascade across the room, "is not luck. It is what each of us chooses to believe about ourselves and about one another." Brooke offered a subtle nod, as if a taut string within her throat had just snapped. Ryan swallowed, his mouth dry. Chase slipped a hand into his pocket, only to withdraw it again, aimlessly. Haley clenched her fingers tightly, her fingernails leaving faint red impressions. These were minor, involuntary reactions, akin to diagnostic logs that Marcus had meticulously trained his eyes to recognize over 5 years. Subtle indicators of a system undergoing self-correction. "So, the Jaden Fund?" someone else inquired, haltingly. "How does it actually operate?" Marcus transitioned to the relevant slide. Not technical specifications, merely a few human-centric lines. Our objective is to support single parents aspiring to acquire a trade. Technical skills. This includes coding support, quality assurance, and basic user interface design. The obstacles they face are varied. Childcare availability, minor fees, transportation challenges, outdated laptops. Our solutions involve micro-grants, typically ranging from $500 to $1,500. We also offer childcare vouchers and provide refurbished laptops. The commitment involves 6 to 12 weeks of learning, supplemented by mentorship. The expected outcome is not an immediate life transformation, but rather a stepping stone on the ladder of progress. Time, Marcus reiterated, is the most expensive currency for the impoverished. When one possesses wealth, one acquires possessions. When one is poor, one seeks to acquire time. This fund is dedicated to a single purpose: to purchase time for individuals endeavoring to ascend the ladder. Tyler offered a nervous chuckle. It sounds like a pitch deck, but incredibly inspiring, Marcus. Regarding that $18 million on the screen, some suggest it's even more. Marcus's lips twitched, not quite a smile, but a subtle alteration in his expression. Tyler, you are evaluating me based on what you can quantify. My worth is not solely defined by measurable assets. This evening, I wish to recall a standard that remains unseen: how a gathering treats its most vulnerable individual. The entire assembly subtly adjusted its posture. From the rightmost aisle, a voice faltered midway through a statement. We erred from the outset, the very moment the sponsor's cue card bore no inscription. Ryan Grant. This misjudgment stemmed from our assumption that the financier had to conform to the image we held in our minds. He sheepishly ran a hand over his scalp. It transpired that you, the one we never envisioned, were the architect of the entire gathering. Chase, poised as if to interject, paused. He carefully selected his words. Marcus, I once believed that articulating sentiments with sufficient volume would convince people of your advancement. Observing you tonight, I realize that quiet strength requires far more fortitude. That was the most considerate remark Chase had offered all evening. Marcus gave a slight nod. Not a poor observation. Somewhere toward the rear, a delicate glass object snapped. There was no audible reaction, no appreciative sound. The room had absorbed a fundamental truth. Boisterousness does not resolve awkwardness. Marcus retrieved his glass. A fresh condensation ring appeared, distinct and unbroken. He made no move to clear it. You inquired whether I would boast or remain reserved when faced with disrespect, he stated, his gaze fixed on a point far beyond, as if peering through glass into another chamber where Jaden slumbered. I have observed silence for a considerable duration. Tonight I speak not to diminish anyone, but to elevate one principle: dignity, my own, that of my children, and that of anyone who has ever been subjected to mockery for being distinct. Haley shifted forward. Is there a way we can provide assistance? Marcus responded with a subtle shake of his head. If your intent is genuine, initiate not with financial contributions, but with perception. The next occasion a group ridicules a single person, subtly alter the narrative. Introduce just one dissenting phrase. Let us first ascertain their discourse. Amidst a throng, one individual refraining from laughter suffices. The words descended with the weight of a handful of small nails scattered across a surface. Though invisible, their presence would alter one's course. Tyler attempted another diversion. How about a light-hearted activity? Everyone share one thing for which they are thankful. No one responded. This was not the opportune moment for 30-second affirmations to cultivate contentment. This was the moment to allow stillness to prevail. Marcus consulted his timepiece. I must depart, he stated plainly. My son is easily disturbed when asleep. A fleeting smile touched his lips. It was the first he had displayed that evening, It lacked the character of a triumphant smile. Rather, it conveyed the satisfaction of a man who had just meticulously restored a misplaced element. He handed the microphone to Tyler and descended. At the edge of the stage, Brooke made a half-step forward before halting. "Marcus," she uttered his name as if returning a borrowed item. "Thank you for presenting the reflection." He inclined his head. "The reflection was always present," he conveyed. "Tonight, the illumination simply fell upon it correctly." As he traversed the aisle, individuals instinctively parted, much like water yielding to a vessel. Mercifully, there was no applause. Applause serves as a ritual that permits individuals to absolve themselves too readily. The gathering needed to sustain its quietude for a longer interval, akin to the lingering sheen of lemon polish after a feast. At the exit, Marcus paused. He surveyed the assembled individuals once more. The condensation ring on the podium had likely dried by now, fading to a subtle outline. The ring on his table had probably also vanished. No one retained those circular marks, yet the insights they imparted would endure. He opened the door. Beyond, the damp streets mirrored the illumination in elongated streaks, resembling lines of code flowing through the darkness. Across the city, Jaden shifted in his slumber, clutching his plush tiger tightly. Marcus proceeded into the darkness with measured strides, as if closing one chapter and allowing the light from another room to expand incrementally. Marcus departed from the podium with the bearing of an individual who had just reinstated a substantial item to its rightful position. The assembled individuals instinctively shifted to either side, creating a passage as smooth as a runway. No one offered a round of applause. That was appropriate. Applause at this juncture would merely facilitate their prompt self-absolution. "Marcus," Tyler Voss called out, attempting to restore an artificial gloss to his voice. You'll remain for a class photograph." He extended the microphone as if offering a gesture of peace. No one responded. For a moment, Tyler's gaze fell upon the vacant cue cards in his grasp, the void that had exposed the evening's superficiality. Marcus halted on the final step. Brooke Whitman moved forward by half a step, her heels faltering as if apprehensive of projecting an excessive volume. "Marcus," she articulated, his name devoid of its prior clipped tone. I'm sorry," she faltered, her eyes no longer evading contact. "Not for the figure displayed on the screen, but for the manner in which we employed you to contrive hollow amusement." For years, the conclusion of her statement seemed to unravel, moist. Marcus nodded. No censure, no certificate of absolution. Absolution, should it arise, is a matter for the future, not a staged ceremony. Another voice, steady yet subdued. "Mr. Green, may I pose a question?" Naomi Carter, a slender young woman positioned near the exit, raised her hand as one would in a classroom. "My sister is a single parent. She wishes to acquire proficiency in manual quality assurance. Might I assist her in submitting an application to the Jaden Fund?" The individuals surrounding her cast glances in her direction. This was precisely the type of inquiry fitting for an occasion such as this. Marcus offered his inaugural smile. "Certainly. The main page features a brief application form and a section for recounting one's narrative. Ensure she details her childcare commitments and the type of device she possesses. We have quality assurance mentors who will conduct video consultations according to her schedule." Naomi nodded emphatically, her eyes shining as if she had discovered a stable handhold. Chase Walker advanced, stopping just an arm's length away. He opened his mouth, then closed it as if grappling with an unfamiliar word. If I wish to contribute to the fund, then—" Marcus tilted his head. "Commence by thoroughly perusing the organization's charter. No personal photographs, no self-promotional material leveraging the achievements of beneficiaries. Sponsors' names are concealed by default." Chase's smile wavered. Anonymous, wasn't it? The thought of replacing his profile image for personal gain flickered and extinguished in his gaze. Another classmate, Gabe Miller, obstructed his path. "Marcus, I always had a premonition you would succeed." Marcus's gaze was direct. "Thank you, Gabe, but you did not know. You surmised. And tonight is not the occasion to claim credit. I possessed this certainty all along." Gabe flushed, stepping back. Truth does not necessitate amplification. In the corner, the catering staff quietly collected platters, exchanging refuse receptacles. Marcus withdrew his wallet, offering a gratuity to the young server, navigating around uneven flooring. "Thank you for preserving the microphone when it seemed inclined to shriek." She chuckled softly, her southern intonation melodious. "You were the sole individual tonight whose statements held logical coherence." A compliment nestled beneath the fluorescent lighting, appropriately measured in its warmth. Marcus Ryan Grant ran a hand through his hair, his turn to confront his own reflection. "I believe I exhibited a deficiency in courage this evening. When Tyler called your designation, I ought to have interjected, stating that is sufficient." Marcus observed him for a moment. "The next time, articulate that. A solitary voice can pivot an entire audience." Ryan nodded, his countenance appearing lighter, as though he had just completed a simple physical activity he had previously neglected. Another small group lingered, inquiring quietly, "Do you require user interface mentors for the parental support program? We can allocate 3 evenings per week." Marcus made a note of their contact information, reminding them, "Synchronize according to your respective time zones. Time represents the most valuable commodity possessed by those with limited means." The statement resonated, embedding itself in several hearts. Haley Brooks stepped forward, clutching her glass as if it were a doorknob. I intended to refrain from amusement tonight, but I succumbed due to apprehension regarding potential awkwardness." Marcus offered a weary smile. Awkwardness is when the entire room engages in misdirected laughter and no one intervenes. The next instance, consider intervening, even a minor deviation. Haley exhaled, as if granted a small dispensation against her anxieties. At the microphone, Tyler made a final attempt. "So, how about a group photograph with Marcus?" No one stirred. They understood that such a photograph would serve as validation. "We have comprehensively repaired the situation within a single frame." Tonight, they were not entitled to such swift forgetfulness. Tyler lowered his hand. The microphone struck the stand with a dull thud as it made contact with excessive force. Marcus reached his designated table, lifted his glass, and observed the dried water ring, which had left a subtle saline residue. He positioned the glass precisely in the center, as if affixing a mark of finality. "Marcus," Brooke called out again, her voice returning to a natural cadence. "May I register as a curriculum vitae composition mentor for the parents?" Marcus nodded. "Indeed, but bear in mind, do not endeavor to transform someone's existence overnight. Merely assist them in ascending 1 increment." Brooke silently repeated, "1 increment," as if committing a new directive to memory. He looked up at the banner displaying "Presented by Summit Gatherings," the spotlight subtly softening its edges, akin to a brand insignia being disconnected. A staff member approached. "Mr. Green, the final disbursement has been processed." Marcus nodded. "Gratitude. Kindly request that they package a brownie for Jaden." A paper bag, secured with white cotton twine, was presented to him. Near the exit, Naomi awaited the QR code. Marcus accessed the funds application. In the corner of his phone's display was Jaden's face, contorted in a joyful smile. Naomi whispered, "Absolutely charming." Marcus smiled. He imparted the most challenging equation to me, the art of acquiring additional time. Naomi nodded, her eyes glistening. As his hand reached for the door handle, Marcus overheard another apology from Chase. unembellished, without justification, merely 2 words. Marcus turned back. "Thank you. Thank you for your punctuality, not your rhetoric." Chase nodded. It was the first instance that evening that he had not adjusted his hair prior to speaking. Marcus pushed the door open. The hallway carried the scent of floor polish and chilled air. Internally, the remainder stayed clustered, uncertain how to navigate the silence, so they remained within it for a period. That constituted their initial directive, to stand beside a truth without masking it with a jest. The door clicked shut behind Marcus with a distinct sound. The atmosphere of the night softened by a single degree. The nocturnal breeze caught the taxi's window frame like a guitar string being tuned to a specific pitch. The cityscape, slick with rain, stretched its illumination into elongated lines, resembling strands of code traversing the darkness. Marcus reclined, one hand cradling the bag containing the brownie, the other unlocking his mobile device. 12 new messages awaited, subject lines scrolled past. "My apologies for the evening, mentor registration, proposal for fund collaboration, article. Is it accurate?" He refrained from an immediate response. Replies composed hastily in the darkness are seldom the most judicious. The apartment door opened with a familiar click. Mrs. Evans peered out, a smile on her face, and whispered, "The little gentleman is sleeping soundly." He stirred briefly around 9 o'clock. I simply patted him once, and he was fast asleep. Marcus expressed his thanks and discreetly placed a thin envelope into her hand. She gestured dismissively, but accepted it, as she always did, understanding that refusal would deprive someone of the courtesy of gratitude. The kitchen exuded a soft glow. The refrigerator remained Jaden's personal exhibition space. "Dad, plus me," scrolled askew over an electricity bill. On the table, 2 Lego train cars stood precariously, a headlight having dislodged to the side. Marcus retrieved it, reattaching it with a faint click. "Taller signifies greater strength," he murmured, recalling a sentiment he had shared with his son earlier. He pushed open the bedroom door. Jaden slept on his side, his arms encircling the stuffed tiger, one ear flattened from use. Marcus settled himself on the edge of the bed, attuned to the boy's shallow, even breaths. "Dad is home," he whispered. These words were not intended for Jaden's reception, but to mend an internal fraying thread. He placed the brownie bag on the small desk beside the bed, affixing a hastily written note. "1 piece in the morning, strictly. Dad." He then drew the blanket up over his son's shoulders. Returning to the kitchen, Marcus activated his laptop. The Jaden Fund dashboard indicated renewed interest. 7 applications submitted within the last hour alone. 1 belonged to Naomi, her sister, Aaliyah Carter, a single mother with a 3-year-old working mornings at a nail salon, aspiring to master manual quality assurance within 12 weeks. She required childcare assistance 3 evenings a week and a laptop, as hers was incapable of running 4 Chrome browser tabs simultaneously. Marcus initiated a support ticket. Assign mentor slot 8 to 9:30 p.m., Tuesday and Thursday. Provide reference laptop issue and childcare vouchers. He sent a ping to Lena, the lead QA mentor, flagging it as a priority due to a tight schedule. He opened emails from Haley. "I am registering to assist with CV composition for parents Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8:00 to 9:00 p.m. I have reviewed the charter. No personal photographs, no social media posts. Thank you for illuminating the path." From Brooke, a fellow single parent, expressing interest in learning user interface design. "May I refer her?" From Chase. "I wish to anonymously sponsor 20 micro-grants. No names to be displayed on any promotional material, only a single request. Kindly forward me 2 success stories per quarter to assure me that the funds are being allocated appropriately." Marcus flagged this email in green. No immediate reply required. The most impactful pledges are those that retain their integrity through the morning. Another email arrived from the Rutherford Advancement Office, extending an invitation to an urgent meeting. Miss Parker, Director of Fundraising. The circulated footage has generated significant buzz amongst the board. Certain members advocate for a partnership with the Jaden Fund. Others express dissatisfaction regarding the manner in which you handled your classmates. We would appreciate hearing your stipulations. Marcus read the message deliberately, placing his phone onto a coaster. The coffee cup left a glistening imprint. A message popped up from Chase Walker. I possess expertise in public relations. Permit me to manage your communications through my agency. Marcus observed the words manage and agency blinking, then typed back, gratitude. This is not a promotional campaign. It is an educational experience. I will manage it through measured silence. If you wish to contribute, please consult the fund's charter. Anonymous. The typing indicator appeared, then stopped, reappeared, and vanished. For the first time since the preceding evening, the words remained static. Marcus drafted a concise public note on the Jaden Fund's platform. Kindly refrain from speaking on our behalf. The events of last night are not a viral phenomenon to be repurposed. They represent a mirror. If you experience shame, retain that sentiment long enough to instigate behavioral change. Regarding the press, the fund does not disclose personal information of beneficiaries. Please do not request that we author your felicitous conclusion. We allocate time for individuals pursuing education. We do not monetize their narratives. He reread each sentence. No admonition, no self-aggrandizement, merely established protocols. Another notification arrived. Insider Sparkle. We have been informed that the fund maintains recipient course listings. Please provide these so that we may inspire others. Marcus took a screenshot and forwarded it to the legal counsel. Prepare a standard cautionary communication. However, before the lawyer could respond, he modified the fund's application form itself. He appended a prominent notice. Exercise discretion in sharing information. We anonymize all details except for the contact email address. He implemented access limitations, disabled automatic indexing, and encrypted sensitive data fields. At a time when individuals clamored for narratives, the directory designated NO had to function flawlessly. His phone buzzed. Brooke Whitman. Marcus, should you engage with the Rutherford board, I will attend as an alumna providing support, not to speak on your behalf, merely as a presence. Marcus replied, Gratitude. I will present 3 conditions. If the institution concurs, that is acceptable. Otherwise, the fund will operate independently. She inquired about the 3 conditions. Marcus typed back, 1. A code of conduct prohibiting performative disparagement at student events and the cessation of mock accolades. 2. Childcare subsidies for students whose parents attend evening programs. 3. Entrance scholarships for students from underrepresented backgrounds. Brooke responded, Agreed. Marcus proceeded to a cafe near the campus, briefly encountering Tyler. Tyler arrived 10 minutes ahead of schedule, laying out a stack of blank cue cards. I utilized these as a shield for years, he confessed, appearing unvarnished, his hair unstyled. Last night, I attempted to control the room through humor. I was mistaken. Marcus glanced at the stack. Cardboard emptiness, reminiscent of the photo not provided slide from the previous evening, then pushed it back towards Tyler. Keep them as a reminder that sometimes blankness is preferable to a predetermined script. Tyler's coffee left a dark ring overlapping an existing stain. He made no move to wipe it away. Leave it, Marcus advised. Marks serve as evidence. Marcus nodded. He wished to arrange a session for the class, a time for quiet reflection. No masters of ceremony, no diversions, just an opportunity for those who had been mocked to share their experiences. Marcus considered the idea. If such a gathering were to happen, ensure the appropriate individuals were invited. And, he stipulated, he did not wish to be designated as the guest of honor. This would not be a spectacle, he emphasized. Meanwhile, a notification from Miss Parker arrived in his electronic mailbox. A meeting was scheduled for 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the Rutherford boardroom. She mentioned that some of the more senior alumni were expressing discontent, writing that the institution should not be functioning as a social hub. However, the chairperson of the governing body was keen to hear his proposals. Marcus responded. He agreed to attend, but with specific stipulations. No photographic documentation, no recounting of personal triumphs, and the sole focus of the discussion would be policy. Upon returning to his residence, he donned a plain dark shirt and a hoodie over it. Before departing, he paused at Jaden's doorway. "Your father will be back shortly," he whispered. The boy stirred, his grip tightening on his stuffed tiger. Marcus stepped out, carefully closing the door behind him. On the kitchen counter, the residue of the morning's milk had dried into a white circle. He placed a fresh glass of milk slightly off-center, a silent reminder. This afternoon was not a reprise of the previous evening. This would be a dialogue, not an attempt to undo past actions. The elevator doors reflected a Marcus who was no longer the boy, who had been designated as photo not provided. He was not there to have a building named after him or to be immortalized with a statue. His purpose was to request 3 simple yet challenging concessions, and if necessary, he was prepared to decline financial contributions. The resolve from the previous night still felt palpable. For Jaden, for Aaliyah, and for any individual embarking on a new endeavor, progress, if one truly desired it, must commence with established guidelines. The city outside remained abuzz with activity, but within the elevator, Marcus chose a profound stillness. He sent a text message to Brooke. 3 p.m., Rutherford boardroom. Lend your genuine perspective to Tyler. If your aim is truly to effect positive change, begin by observing in silence. He locked the device's screen and tucked it into his pocket. The door opened, revealing a hallway that stretched out before him. He anticipated the boardroom would carry the familiar scent of lemon polish, the kind of fragrance that masks imperfections until a new water ring is inadvertently left. The Rutherford boardroom was a long, narrow, and rather cool space. The ever-present lemon aroma enveloped the expanse of the oak table. Along its polished surface, water glasses rested on coasters, each poised to leave its own distinct circular mark. Miss Parker, her hair neatly silvered, rose to acknowledge his arrival. "Thank you for attending, Marcus." To her right sat Chairman Allen, his broad forehead and deep voice commanding attention. To her left was Mrs. Lopez, an alumna from 1990, her expression open and receptive. At the far end of the table sat Mr. Whittam, a significant benefactor, identifiable by his dark blue tie and eyes as sharp as paper clips. Further down the table, Brooke Whitman, the chairperson of the Alumni Representatives Committee, arrived just moments after Marcus. She offered a brief nod. "Let's refrain from excessive enthusiasm. Let us view the recording," Chairman Allen stated. The screen flickered to life, displaying Tyler expressing gratitude to an anonymous benefactor. Marcus stepped forward, his declaration, "Actually, it was me," dropping into the ensuing silence like a stone. A pause, then a profound quiet. Some of the alumni felt rather embarrassed, Allen began, hesitating. However, a considerable number of emails have expressed support. Miss Parker informs me you have stipulations for a potential partnership. Marcus met their gazes directly. 3. My name is not to appear anywhere unless it is on official legal documentation. 1. The institution must implement a code of conduct for all events. This code should prohibit mock awards, clearly define what constitutes performative bullying, and explicitly outline the responsibility of masters of ceremony and staff to intervene. 2. The institution should provide childcare stipends for parents and students who have children and are attending evening programs. 3. The institution should establish a modest admission scholarship specifically for students from underrepresented backgrounds. No public relations efforts, no interviews highlighting overcoming adversity, simply straightforward access. Whittam scoffed. Rutherford is an academic institution, not a social experiment. Adversity builds resilience. Marcus tilted his head slightly. Resilience does not require an audience. Resilience is a student articulating enough at the precise moment a mock award is presented. Does Rutherford cultivate that trait, or does it foster a combative spirit with the crowd? Whittam tapped his fingers rhythmically. I will not be funding this sort of conditional proposition. Mrs. Lopez interjected. Last night, I received 3 calls from parents. One individual had to forego 2 work shifts to attend a college counseling session, but they lacked childcare. They were forced to leave halfway through. She surveyed the room slowly. A stipend makes perfect sense. Chairman Allen nodded, making notes. A different voice, warm and resonant, spoke next. Dr. Patel, the student advisor. I have observed performative bullying for years. We never possessed the appropriate terminology. It was always dismissed as just kids joking around. I endorse the code of conduct. Whittam shrugged dismissively. So, your next step will be to outlaw all forms of teasing. Children will become fragile. Brooke straightened in her seat. Children do not become fragile simply because they are not subjected to teasing. They break when they are dropped, repeatedly, in front of everyone, and then subjected to laughter. She turned her pen, allowing its tip to rest upon the paper. I laughed last night. Today, I feel ashamed, but shame serves a purpose if it prompts a change in behavior. Whittam scoffed condescendingly. Young lady, you are overcome by sentiment. Brooke lifted her eyes, meeting his. If those sentiments lead us to sign a document that offers protection to individuals, then I am quite content to be overwhelmed. Marcus remained silent, allowing the conversation to unfold organically. Miss Parker suggested, perhaps we should vote on each item individually. Allen concurred. Item 1, the Code of Conduct. All in favor? Allen, Lopez, Patel, Brooke voted in favor. Whittam voted against. Mr. Rhodes, a businessman, and Mrs. Kent, a retired teacher, abstained. Dean Harris hesitated. We require one more voice, Parker stated. Dean Harris removed his spectacles. I once believed teasing was an intrinsic part of the culture. But last night, I witnessed a performance, and I found the performance deeply unsettling. I vote in favor. Item 1 passed. Item 2, childcare stipends. Whittam declared abruptly, this institution is not a nursery. Marcus responded calmly, but who does the institution inadvertently exclude when events are consistently scheduled for those who already have childcare arrangements? He continued, fairness is not about treating everyone identically. It is about providing a seat for those who do not possess one. Mrs. Lopez emitted a soft chuckle. Providing a seat? I find that a compelling analogy. I vote yes. Lopez, Patel, Brooke, and Harris voted in favor. Whittam and Rhodes voted against. The chairman leaned forward. Yes, let us proceed with a pilot program for 1 semester. Item 2 passed. Item 3, the admissions scholarship. Whittam pushed his chair back forcefully. If this measure passes, my pledge is rescinded. A palpable chill descended upon the room. Miss Parker's expression flickered as she mentally tallied the potential loss of pledges. Marcus stated, if you withdraw your support, I will not attempt to compensate for it. Financial concerns are not the primary issue. Principles must take precedence. Without them, money merely purchases silence. The room fell into a hushed stillness. Brooke leaned forward. If he withdraws, I will cover a portion of the contribution. And I am aware of 2 other alumni who would match it. Not at his level, but enough to initiate the program. Whittam smirked. Are you attempting to transform Rutherford into a sanctuary of moralistic pronouncements? Marcus replied, No, merely an educational institution, a place where individuals learn not to laugh when someone else is being subjected to ridicule. He locked eyes with Whittam. Last night, when that honorable mention was announced, not a single adult intervened to say, enough. Today, let us attempt to act as responsible adults, just once. Alan tapped his gavel against the edge of the table. A dull thud echoed in the lemon-scented air. Vote. All in favor? Alan, Lopez, Patel, and Brooke voted in favor. Whittam and Rhodes voted against. Kent abstained. Harris surveyed the room, then nodded. Item 3 passed. Whittam abruptly pushed his chair back and stood. You will regret this decision. He exited, the door closing behind him, leaving a water ring on his untouched glass. Miss Parker exhaled softly, a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of 5 years of fundraising efforts. Thank you, she said quietly. We will draft the necessary policies and commence the pilot program next term. Marcus nodded. Excellent. My name is not to be displayed anywhere. However, I request that an empty frame be hung in the lobby, labeled Photo Not Provided, as a constant reminder to all who pass of what remains unseen. Alan offered a gentle smile. A monument to absence. I rather like that concept. Brooke brushed the cover of her notebook. And what of the alumni listening session? Patel responded. I will co-host it with you. No master of ceremonies. Current and former students who have experienced mockery will have the opportunity to speak. The remainder of us will simply listen. Marcus added, no photographic recording, no editing of their testimonies, and no attempts to frame their narratives for others. The meeting was adjourned. As individuals rose from their seats, coasters were lifted from beneath glasses, leaving behind faint circular impressions that were only discernible in slanted light. Marcus observed these marks, contemplating their significance. The true evidence of their deliberation was not the raised voices, but these subtle water stains. They were indications that individuals had remained engaged long enough to facilitate a shift in perspective. In the corridor, Brooke walked alongside him. Will you inform Jaden? Marcus smiled. He only needs to know that his father returned home at the scheduled time. They both let out soft chuckles. Parker called out regarding the Photo Not Provided frame. I will submit a request for board approval this week. On the stone steps outside, the air was perfumed with the scent of damp leaves after a rainfall. Marcus checked his mobile device. An email from Naomi confirmed an 8 o'clock in the evening session. Lena provided an update. A quality assurance mentor had been matched for Aaliyah. He replied, Thank you. Commence this week. He returned the phone to his pocket. A rain-spotted circle on the step gleamed like a coin. Marcus stepped around it. In his mind's eye, he envisioned Jaden sketching another slightly askew son, scrawling the words, Dad plus me. And elsewhere, Aaliyah opening her newly refurbished laptop, diligently composing her first test case, specifically focusing on logging in with an invalid password. Small affirmations would gradually mature into substantial convictions. Certain truths are essential, and they will manifest if reiterated with sufficient consistency. Marcus zipped up his hoodie and descended the steps. Behind him, Rutherford remained the same institution it had always been. Its brick walls, glass entrances, and lemon-scented polish. However, within its confines, a new policy was being drafted, a childcare pilot program was being implemented, and soon an empty frame would occupy a prominent place in the lobby, posing a silent question to every passerby. What are you failing to perceive? This is how environments transform, not through applause, but through the quiet imprint of water rings left to dry, leaving behind subtle outlines that resist fading. Approximately 1 week after the board meeting, Rutherford established a temporary wooden enclosure in the lobby. This enclosure held a large blank poster board with a small plaque affixed to its edge. The plaque read, "Display frame, photo not provided, pending permanent installation." There was no picture, no faces, only a deliberate void. Every person who passed by stopped to look, drawn by the absence of any discernible content. The emptiness compelled the eye towards what was missing. On Friday evening, the multi-purpose room was rearranged, with chairs forming a circular configuration. On the wall, a chart, rendered in blue marker, outlined specific rules. 1. No filming or photography permitted. 2. Listen with the intent to comprehend, not merely to respond. 3. Refrain from narrating others' experiences on their behalf. 4. A 3-minute time limit for each speaker. Tears are permissible, and apologies are not required. 5. If anyone interrupts, state the word, "Enough." Dr. Patel moved around the circle, ensuring that all microphones were deactivated. Tyler stood at the welcome desk, holding no cards. Within his jacket pocket, a stack of blank slips remained, serving as a personal reminder not to overstep his boundaries. Brooke arrived early, laying out mentor profile forms and a box of tissues. "I intend to speak very little this evening," she informed Dr. Patel. "My role will be primarily to listen." He nodded in understanding. That is often the most challenging position to occupy. Marcus appeared at the doorway, his hoodie drawn over his dark shirt. He did not enter the circle. "Tonight belongs to them," he murmured to Dr. Patel. "I will remain at the threshold, listen, and then return to Jaden." Patel grasped the implication. "Understood. If you occupy a seat within the circle, the entire dynamic will shift to revolve around you. That is not what is needed." Marcus nodded, stepping aside. The listening session commenced with a minute of profound silence. Miss Parker offered a brief opening statement. "Thank you all for being here. This evening there is no formal agenda. We are gathered to discuss those moments when laughter within this space veered into unkindness." She then took a seat, positioning herself as an equal among the attendees. The first speaker was Jamal Reed, a scholarship recipient from the class of 2017. "I wore the same worn-out cap to school every day. As I passed the lunch tables, someone would shout, 'Freshman Friday!' I would join in the laughter because I didn't want to disrupt the camaraderie. But tonight, I will confess, I was terrified. I simply did not want to lose my place." A period of silence ensued, devoid of any interjections or encouraging remarks. 3 minutes elapsed. Jamal returned to his seat, making no haste to wipe away his tears. Next, Maya Tran spoke about her stutter, which had become a recurring source of amusement. "They used to call me buffering. Over time, I began selecting my classes based on teachers who were less likely to call on me." She took a deep breath. "I wish to reclaim my name. My name is Maya. I speak slowly because I strive for accuracy in my words." Brooke clenched her hands, her nails digging into her palms. Tyler raised his hand, then lowered it. "Permission to remain silent this evening." He pushed the blank cards further into his pocket. This subtle gesture was noticed by everyone present, a silent acknowledgement of an MC learning to relinquish the spotlight. Standing at the threshold, Marcus leaned against the wall, hearing the creaking of chairs and the pauses in conversation. His gaze fell upon the water jug resting on the side table. Faint rings were forming, drying, and leaving behind pale imprints. Evidence that people had remained present long enough to foster change, he reflected. Not everyone requires elaborate speeches. Sometimes, all that is necessary is a secure space in which to place one's burdens, without fear of them being distorted. A notification pinged. Lena messaged, "Aaliyah has joined the Zoom call. I am mentoring her." Naomi was present with the baby. Marcus checked the time. 8 o'clock sharp, as promised. He walked to his car and opened the laptop situated on the passenger seat. 2 video windows appeared. Aaliyah, wearing a gray t-shirt, her eyes appearing tired. Lena, her voice warm and her tone steady. Session 1. We will not delve into specific tools immediately. Our focus will be on developing observational skills. Quality assurance is not merely about identifying defects. It is about safeguarding the user experience. Tell me about one user journey. For instance, the process of signing up for an account. Then, we will formulate the initial test case. Aaliyah nodded on the screen share. A document opened. Goal: sign up using a valid email address. Steps: open sign-up page. Enter valid email address. Enter password, minimum 8 characters. Accept terms and conditions. Click Create Account. Expected outcome: account created. Confirmation email sent. Potential risks: network timeout on a weak connection. Typos in the email field. Account remains disabled until the checkbox is ticked. An assertion is a promise, Lena explained. When an assertion fails, we rectify the system, not the user. Aaliyah emitted a soft chuckle. I am accustomed to rectifying myself first. Starting today, I will endeavor to rectify the process. Off-screen, Naomi gently rocked the infant. The baby murmured softly, then grew quiet. Marcus listened without intervening. He simply typed a single line into the chat. Time box, 90 minutes. If the baby wakes, pause, rest, and resume. Aaliyah responded with a heart emoji. Lena gave a thumbs up. Another ping arrived. Chase, I have reviewed the charter. I am providing anonymous funding for 20 grants. No public announcements, no social media posts. If you require practical assistance, simply instruct me to move chairs. Marcus typed back, Thank you. Sunday, we are swapping out drives on 12 reverbs. Bring a screwdriver. Chase replied, Understood, then silence. That was the appropriate level of assistance. Back in the multi-purpose room, the session continued. Mrs. Lopez shared a memory. In 1990, we had mock awards. I found it amusing, thinking it was just typical of American schooling. I was mistaken. Tonight, I wish to offer an apology for my 1990 self. There were no applause. The apology was left to stand on its own, akin to placing an object on water to observe its ripples. At 9:15, Dr. Patel concluded with an exercise. Each attendee was asked to write a single sentence that they pledged to utter the next time the room began to descend into cruel jesting. The wall was soon adorned with concise statements, akin to keystrokes. Enough. Let them finish. We do not require this type of amusement. Tyler affixed a blank slip to the wall and wrote a single word. Silent. Marcus returned from the parking area and stood before the paper densely covered with these declarations. He did not sign any of them. On the side table, water rings had dried, overlapping to form a pale map resembling traced rainfall. He walked into the lobby. The temporary photo-not-provided frame still stood, stark white and silent. He paused for a moment, then departed. Another room was awaiting his presence, the small room occupied by Jaden and the stuffed tiger. At home, Marcus gently pushed open his son's bedroom door. Jaden was sniffling, his eyes closed. Marcus placed his palm on his forehead, a rhythmic beat against his skin. In the kitchen, he poured water, carefully setting the glass down. A fresh ring formed, perfectly circular, like a promise. There was no need to wipe it away. He would leave it for the morning, when the sunlight would illuminate its faint outline. These circles made no sound, yet they served as a record. Before retiring for the night, Marcus checked his phone. An email from Naomi. Excellent session. I logged 3 test cases. Thank you. He replied with 11 words. The same as last time. 3 sessions this week. Just maintain the consistent rhythm. Send. In the corner of his screen, a new notification from the school appeared. The frame would be permanently installed on Monday, beneath a line extracted from the newly approved Code of Conduct. No one is a prop. Marcus smiled. At least one room has grasped a fundamental principle. He switched off the light. The night stood still, much like a water ring that had just finished drying. 2 months elapsed. Rutherford's childcare pilot program operated discreetly. A small check-in station was set up at the end of the hallway, featuring 3 low plastic chairs and a shelf stocked with comic books. On the wall, a new value statement was prominently displayed in bold lettering: "No one is a prop." During one orientation session, a student attempted to flash an honorable mention slip as a jest. The teacher on stage raised a hand. "Enough!" The room froze momentarily, then transitioned into a game where no individual was made the target of ridicule. There was no applause for the teacher's intervention. Good, Marcus thought. Adults do not require applause for performing their ethical obligations. The photo not provided frame was now permanently affixed in the lobby. It lacked a nameplate, bearing only a small inscription: "The most significant things are often those we cannot see." Students paused to take photographs, but subsequently found themselves unable to select an appropriate caption, leaving the images without any accompanying text. One day, Marcus stopped by to sign some technical documentation for the Artificial Intelligence Lab infrastructure project. He stood before the frame for a few moments, as if gazing into an internal void. The void of words he no longer felt compelled to utter. The listening sessions evolved into a monthly cadence. Tyler continued to attend, occupying a seat in the back row. There was no master of ceremonies. Brooke established a straightforward mentoring structure. 20 minutes for resume reviews via Zoom, 20 minutes for mock interviews, and 20 minutes for feedback. No recordings were made. The sign-up sheet was completely filled within 48 hours. Miss Parker dispatched anonymous thank you emails to a select list. No photographs were included, and no press contacts were copied. That was the intended lesson. Avoid narrating the experiences of others. Chase underwent a quiet transformation. On Sundays, he would arrive at the storage unit where the fund maintained its equipment. Wearing a beanie, devoid of any stylists or cameras, he carried boxes of solid-state drives and a screwdriver. He would open computer cases and meticulously swap screws. Dust would cling to his fingers, and his hair would frizz beneath the knit cap. "This is genuine technology," Marcus remarked jokingly. Chase responded with a genuine laugh. "This is me. No public display." They worked for 4 hours, never once referencing public relations. Afterward, Chase sent a single text message: "Thank you for providing me with actual work." Aaliyah maintained her progress, attending her 3 weekly sessions. In the 4th week, she drafted a preliminary test plan. In the 6th week, she experimented with exploratory testing. By the 8th week, she had documented a reproducible bug report so clear that the development team expressed their gratitude. Naomi wrote, "My sister smiled for the first time when a developer said, 'Good catch.'" Marcus replied, "Maintain the rhythm. This work succeeds through steady effort, not dramatic breakthroughs." By the conclusion of the 2nd month, Lena had secured Aaliyah a part-time quality assurance contract with a local software-as-a-service company, requiring 20 hours of remote work per week. The fund's childcare vouchers covered an additional 3 evenings. The remuneration was modest, but it represented a tangible step forward. Eiley emailed simply, "I have purchased a new chair. I feel more stable now." Marcus smiled at the word chair. At home, Jaden commenced swimming lessons. "Today," he recounted to Marcus, "a child was laughed at for wearing his cap backward." "What did you do?" Marcus inquired. Jaden winked. "I said, 'Change the game.' I lent him mine." Marcus ruffled his hair. "You offered him a seat. he said, adopting the newly introduced terminology. Jaden didn't fully grasp the nuance, but he grinned. That evening they wrote together on the whiteboard. Assertion, kindness equals truth. Jaden asked, "What does assert mean?" Marcus explained, "It's a promise you verify every single day." Periodically, tabloids attempted to reignite the narrative of the $18 million versus $100 million. Marcus remained silent. Brooke texted, "Would you like me to correct it?" Marcus replied, "No, we do not drag a story back into a room that has already absorbed the lesson." Silence, when chosen intentionally, had become a form of protection. The code of conduct proved effective in ways that went unnoticed. Cruel jokes were curtailed at an earlier stage. Student masters of ceremony discreetly lowered microphones at the appropriate moments. A teacher's glance sufficed. A classmate's whispered, "Enough," intervened precisely when needed. The school's overall atmosphere did not undergo an instantaneous transformation, but its underlying tone became slightly less acrid. One afternoon, Marcus brought Jaden to Rutherford's lobby. The boy paused at the empty frame. "Why no picture, Dad?" "Because some things do not require a visual representation to be remembered," Marcus stated. "Like what?" "Like the principle of not laughing when someone is the subject of a jest." Jaden nodded solemnly, as if committing a rule to memory. Outside, a light rain began to fall. They took shelter beneath a cafe awning. On the plastic table, Marcus placed 2 mugs of hot cocoa. The heat radiated outward, leaving 2 water rings, one small, one larger. Jaden pressed a finger into his. "Mine's tiny." "Tiny but warm," Marcus replied. He observed his own ring, more expansive and resilient, and his thoughts turned to the various rooms. The initial one, where laughter had raged. The boardroom, where the gavel had fallen. The listening room, where fears had been shared openly, and his kitchen, where a promise had dried into a faint ring each morning. That night, Marcus opened his notes application and added a new section titled Next Lessons. 4. Inspiring a collective shift does not necessitate grand oratory. A single individual initially stating, "Enough," is sufficient. 5. Anonymity is not synonymous with concealment. On occasion, it represents the most compassionate form of assistance. 6. Transmit only textual content without any appended instructions or commentary. The blank picture frame serves a purpose. It doesn't demand attention with a face. It brings to mind what we can't perceive. A new electronic message arrived from Tyler this evening. No one claimed the microphone. The atmosphere was pleasant. "I intend to remain quiet for a time." After a brief pause, Marcus responded. Being silent is also an action. Before retiring for the night, Marcus examined the financial plan. 12 new hours for mentorship were becoming available. 5 reconditioned laptops required new power sources. He scheduled Aaliyah for a review of a version 2.0 defect report. From the edge of his vision, Jaden was asleep, nestled close to the stuffed tiger, its ear crudely reattached with Marcus's fumbling stitches. The stitching was unskillful, but it successfully contained the filling. The following morning, father and son added another level to the interlocking brick train. Marcus reiterated that greater height signifies greater stability. Jaden nodded, firmly pressing the connection. Outside, the rain softened into a gentle shower. On the table, the remnants of last night's hot chocolate had dried, leaving pale rings. No one bothered to clean them. It wasn't necessary. Those rings were mementos. A mug had rested there. 2 individuals had occupied those seats. A few concluding remarks had been exchanged somewhere within the city. And if you were to pose the initial query once more, if you were the one ridiculed by everyone present, would you seek to impress or maintain your composure? Marcus would probably offer a slight smile. The choice isn't about selecting a single course of action. Sometimes, stillness fosters growth. At other times, speaking brings resolution. More crucially, what role will you adopt in that setting? Will you be the one who laughs, who holds the microphone, who declares that enough is enough, or the one who quietly places down a glass, ensuring that the faint ring left behind tomorrow serves as a reminder that respect was present, not ostentatiously displayed, but fundamentally binding? This is the progression of Marcus Green, from a child considered insignificant to a single father of color who demonstrated that being different is not a failing, but a source of resilience, enabling one to stand firm and clear the path for others. If you found yourself the target of mockery from an entire assembly, would you depart in silence or confront the situation and reveal the truth to alter the narrative? Share your reflections in the comments section below. If this account resonated with you, please remember to like it, forward it to your acquaintances, and subscribe to the channel to ensure you don't miss subsequent impactful videos. Would you prefer a more concise and impactful conclusion that fits smoothly at the end of a narrative?